Welcome back. We will continue with our lectures. Today we are going to talk about the space-time idea from a Newtonian mechanics point of view or Newtonian dynamics point of view. Newtonian idea of space-time. This is a part of course PH 4205 at IISER Calcutta. Today we are going to talk about idea of Newtonian space-time. Of course, in Newtonian dynamics, space-time is like a stage which does not actually change or interact with the what is going inside, or the dynamics or particles will not affect the space-time. It rigidly remains. Observers can move around and move with respect to each other. However, it cannot change the geometry of space or time. So let's go and see this in detail. First, let's talk about the time. In the Newtonian dynamics, the time is global, or time is same for all the observer. In the Newtonian mechanics, or simply in mechanics, we have a concept of global time, or time is same and universal for all observers. So this is an interesting simple idea. Newton avoided the most of the complexity by fixing it, making it rigid, and it was sufficient at that time. All the clock in the universe tick in the same way. There is no difference of time whatsoever from one observer to another observer. All the clocks are synchronized and move in the same fashion. This looks somewhat unrealistic, but entire mechanics was built on this idea, and that is what survived nearly 400 years with all kind of an experimental measurement. Now we know that this idea is true only when the speed involved are small compared to the speed of light. So let's go ahead. Let's try to picturize the time in terms of space-time concept. Here you have space in one direction, let's say in x direction, and time in the y direction. This is the idea of space-time diagram notation, which can be drawn for the Newtonian mechanics too. So we have various observer, which we call the inertial observer or any other observer. They have all have a time same. So there is no difference. Their time, if it is initially starts with that, the time difference which actually matters is essentially remains same for all the observer, even if the origin could be different. If this observer starts his clock little later, that would have a offset. Otherwise, the time interval measured for all the observers are same. You do not have any freedom to play around with time, or you cannot transform the time in any way in Newtonian mechanics. This is what is not allowed in the Newtonian framework. Time transformation simply is not allowed. So with this idea of time, we go on to the Newtonian mechanics. Once the time is fixed and rigid, the space-time idea doesn't really have any meaning, because time is fixed for all observer. It is sufficient to have a spatial representation or space itself. If the time is different, then only space-time diagram makes sense. In this case, you don't really need a space-time diagram, because time is same for all the observer. So next comes is the idea of the inertial frame. It is underlying the structure of Newtonian mechanics. This is also known as Newton's first law of motion, or Galilean principle. It is a Galileo who first came up with the law of inertia, or the inertial frame. There are some interesting frames in which absence of external influence or the force, a particle at rest will continue to remain at rest, and the particle moving at the constant speed will continue to move at the same velocity. So this is a idea of an inertial frame. If a frame satisfies this condition, then you call it an inertial frame. That means the testing a given frame is an inertial frame or not is a fairly straightforward idea. You have to do a two experiment there. First one, you keep a particle at rest, and then if it remains at rest all the time, and then that satisfies the one condition. The second condition is you make a particle move with the constant velocity, and if the frame is inertial, then it will continue to move in the same velocity, otherwise it is going to change. You might think that it is a redundant kind of an experiment, but let me give you a counter example. Let us take a rotating frame. Now you have to check whether using this test whether it is an inertial or non-inertial. Now keep a particle at rest at origin, so it is going to remain rest throughout. It is not going to change its position, because we know that in the rotating frame axis there is no movement. So if you keep a particle there, it will remain there all throughout. For that matter, if you keep a particle anywhere rest on a rotating frame, it will continue to remain at rest. So that condition is perfectly satisfied. On the other hand, if you give a small velocity, constant velocity to the particle, then on a rotating frame, velocity will not remain the same because of all the effect of non-inertial frame. It will experience Coriolis and centrifugal force, and the velocity will start deviating. So these two conditions satisfying the inertial frames are very important. We will have a little bit more discussion on the rotating frame. It is very important to understand the rotating frame, to understand the physics of general theory of relativity. It is, after all, we are talking about the acceleration and its connection with the gravity. The frames which satisfy these conditions are called the inertial frames. Now, because the velocity doesn't really matter in this game, all the frames which are moving at constant velocity with respect to an inertial frame is also an inertial frame. This is essentially a corollary of principle of inertial frame. So let's see that how do we represent space-time here. We can have a spatial two coordinates, x and y, or you can call it x1, x2 and y1, y2. And then if these two frames at present, they are rest with respect to each other, but they have a same time. On the other hand, if these two are moving with respect to this, then it could be momentarily rest during this time. As time progresses, you would see the frames would be displaced. If two frames are rest with respect to each other, then you would see that it will remain same. But on the other hand, if the frames are moving with the uniform velocity, then they would be displaced in the later time. So this is the idea of inertial frame. And next comes is the Newton's laws of motion, and we will also discuss about its invariance. The Newton's laws of motion: in an inertial frame, the rate of change of momentum is equal to the force or the external influence. It is important to state that the Newton's laws are themselves valid only on the inertial frame. That means in an inertial frame, rate of change of momentum is equal to the force or external influence. We write it in terms of equation. F is a force which is equal to rate of change of momentum. Momentum is essentially given by mass into velocity of for the particle. With the complex system, you could have a very complicated way of defining the momentum, but dynamics essentially is given by the rate of change of momentum is equal to force. Newton's laws are invariant or same in all inertial frame. So this is essentially what we call as a Galilean invariance. So Newton's law should be same on all the inertial frames. Let us see this in a little bit more detail. So what we have is an inertial frame. Let's call it a O1, which could have two coordinates or n coordinates. Usually the space is three-dimensional, so we should restrict it to 3. But I cannot plot all the 3 dimensions, so I restrict it to 2, x1 and x2, Of course, if you are living in a fancy world or in a fantasy world, you have more than 3 dimensions, then you could have as many you want. The discussion doesn't really depend on the number of dimensions of the space. Now, in this case, Newton's laws can be written as a force in the x frame is equal to dpx by dt. And you have another frame which you call a O2 frame. This is also an inertial frame which will have a coordinate of y1 and y2. It is not that this is x coordinate and this is y coordinate. I am just using a different symbol. The coordinates are y1 and y2 and x1 and x2. Now here also Newton's laws are valid because it's also an inertial frame. Then you would see it can be written as a rate of change of momentum is equal to force. In general, because this is an inertial frame, we could have a relation or a transformation from inertial frame O1 to O2 given by a matrix A, yi is equal to matrix A into xi. Of course, because these both are inertial frame, you could also have an inverse relation which connects as xi as a matrix B into yi. Now, matrix A and matrix B in terms are related, but that is not important from current discussion point of view. They should be inverse of each other. Otherwise, this would really get into chaos because you can go from one inertial frame to another inertial frame, come back, go forward, come back, forward. Then you lead to different, each point maps into different point and eventually creating the arc. So let's say that we are in the O1 inertial frame where Newton laws are given, and then P of x, I and F of x, I are momenta and force respectively. And we have a frame O2. There also we can write the Newton's law. We have a Py and Fy are the momenta and force in that frame. Now we have a velocity in the frame 1 where you have a dxi by dt is equal to vxi. And the same way we have a velocity of the particle in the O2 frame where you have a dyi by dt is equal to vi of y. Now we try to relate both of these. We start with the velocity vx, which can be written as dxi by dt. Now we also know the relation xi can be written in terms of yi's through the transformation bi. So we explicitly write it and use a chain rule for differentiation. Then we get d by db into yi plus b into dy by dt. Now you can go ahead, differentiate it again, get the second derivative and use the Newton's law and so on. But it is straightforward to see that at this stage you might have done this kind of calculation earlier, that if the Newton's laws have to be invariant, then we need to have a condition dB by dt is equal to 0. That means the matrix B have to be constant with the respect to time. So or its exact derivative with respect to time have to be 0. So then we can also relate the velocity from frame V frame. We can relate velocity on frame 2 to frame 1 and vice versa. Same way we can relate the force also. Force also can be related by the same transformation, and we can write down the Newton's equation. All the laws of physics can be written down in the same way using this transformation, and that is what we say, that the inertial frame will have laws of physics invariant, or it can be related from one another, and the Newton's law would take the same form. Rate of change of momentum is equal to force in the both coordinate system. So this is a type of transformation called the Galilean transformation, which leaves the Newton's laws invariant. Now let's have a closer look at the Galilean transformation. We have a type of transformation leaves the Newton's law invariant are called the Galilean transformation. We have seen from earlier derivation that the condition is a dB by dt is equal to 0, because in all these things there is something which we have hidden below the carpet or which we have not considered. Let us look at what we have ignored. Let's look at the Newton's law. It says that the force is a rate of change of momentum. This whole quantity being vectors, we should have been writing not as a component directly. A vector is a combination of a component and its basis vector. So we say that the EIs are basis vector and the PIs are component. If we differentiate it, then we have two parts using the chain rule. One is the rate of change of component and the rate of change of the basis vector itself. Now, we see that in the Euclidean coordinate system or many similar cases, in the Rn vector space, we can always take the basis vector which are constant. And then we can have our Newton's law nicely written as a rate of change of momentum with its component only. However, if you want to deviate and if you want to have your more general coordinate system in which for example spherical coordinate system or some other curvilinear coordinate system, this is an exact derivative. So even if the basis vector depends on the position, it would be non-zero, and in such case we seems to be getting into trouble. So we need to have a more general formalism. Actually, general theory of relativity, which is actually general covariant, it allows an arbitrary transformation, not just a linear transformation, which of course becomes a little bit more complicated because you already have seen what happens the term. One is a vector represented by a basis. Basis itself could be changing. On the other hand, all the transformation have to be allowed to have a law of physics to be invariant, not just the linear transformation. That also lead to the various terms in your transformation and the whole things get messy. That is what we call is a general transformation or general covariance. So in the case of this, you require the formalism or a mathematical structure, which we call is a tensor or a differential geometry, which incorporate all these things, including the curvilinear coordinates and rate of change of vectors, its component, and full transformation. Everything can be handled, and that is a way of what we call is a tensor algebra and tensor calculus are required to handle the general theory of relativity. One of the easiest way to avoid these type of difficulties of coordinate transformation is using the Lagrangian mechanics. It is well within the framework of Newtonian mechanics. You have a global time. However, the spatial coordinates could be changing from simply this kind of a condition, and you could use a general coordinate system to represent your system. However, simplification comes because you are not writing the laws of motion in terms of the vector law as it is given by the Newton's laws of motion. You are using it in terms of the Lagrangian, which is essentially a scalar, can be easily transformed to any coordinate system, and then write down the equation of motion in terms of Lagrange equation. So that would incorporate all these things, and without realizing, you would be doing all the complicated calculation, even getting the hint that you are doing such a complicated calculation. That's the beauty of the Lagrangian mechanics. The same calculation, if you have to do within the framework of Newton's law, then it would become rather very tedious. That is the importance of Lagrangian mechanics. In the tutorial, I'm going to exactly show that how this is being done. So let me stop here for the present lecture and continue in the next lecture.